Okay, everyone. Good morning. My name is Alex. I am Dr. Cavigado's PhD student, and I'm going to be talking about my project. This presentation is going to be more hands-on focused, and I'm going to sprinkle some data from my research so we can have a context of what's going on. So even though I'm going to be talking about native warm season grasses, the principles and ideas are also, they also work for cool seasons as well. So it's kind of all grasses will behave the same in a grading system. So first, what are you going to present? What are you going to be talking about? How to use native warm season grasses, finding ways to manage them easily, and then provide you baselines that are easy to follow depending of your needs, depending on the energy demand of your animals, for example. So the idea is to bring something that is theoretical into practice, easy to follow. So first thing, when I talk about native warm season grasses, this is how we imagine them. A lot of growth, a lot of stems, a lot of dead material, and seed heads. So we think generally that they have a very bad quality. However, as Dr. Chavigado already showed you, this is actually not true. They are flexible. You can manage them according to different strategies. So for this example, big blue stem and Indian grass, protein levels of 15–16%, digestibility of almost 80%. This is quite good quality for a warm season grass, right? But then comes the challenge. How do I manage my pasture according to my animals? Are you going to have more mass, less quality, more quality, less mass? How do you do that? And basically the idea is which type of animals you have in your farm and what are their energy demands. For example, an open cow compared to a heavy finisher animal that is going for slaughter. The amount of food and energy that that animal has to have is very different. And one way that can help you out in having an idea of the energy demand, intake of your animals, and all this kind of stuff, depending on the gain you want to have, is this material right here from Oklahoma State. I got this from our team of Extension Office in Ohio State, this picture right there, and we'll help you out to have an idea of the energy demand of your animals and everything. It's very useful. So now you have an idea. We can manage them for quality, or we can manage them for mass. I have animals that are demanding in energy, and some that are not. How do I control that then? How can this be an easy way to manage my pasture? And here's the concept of pasture structure. And just to initialize what is pasture structure then, is everything that you can interact with your pasture. Everything that your animal is going to eat, touch, and interact with is the pasture structure. So forage mass, leaf-stem proportion, height, plant species, density, all of this is the combination of the structure. But how this is helpful for you? How can you get something useful from this? And this is the concept that is the most important thing from this presentation, is that pasture has memories. And when I say that they have memory, is that they take a time to adapt to your grazing management, and the way they're going to adapt might be good or not of what you want, according to what you want. So you might be looking at this graph right here, and might be thinking, this is a pasture under regrowth, and this is not the case. I have two cues here. One, the vertical axis is talking about yield per acre per year. So it's the sum of every growth cycle that you had in your pasture. And here's target height. It's not a pasture that is growing through time. It's a pasture that I'm grazing at 10 inches, 15 in this example, let's say a warm season, 20, 25, 30, and 35. Let me illustrate this a little bit better. Imagine you have an open area in your farm. You want to see this graph by yourself. Get 6 plots. Get, I don't know, an Indian grass if you want. See them in your 6 plots and cut the first one at 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, always cutting at these targets. Collect all the forage that you provide, that you had in the entire season, and this is the graph you're going to have. Interesting points. Do you notice that this farm will realize that cutting at 20, grazing at 20, and grazing at 35, a taller pasture, is producing the same thing? How's that? How is that possible? I mean, the one that has more mass is supposed to be producing more. And this is the idea of pasture has memories. The short one will produce the same thing because it will have a shorter plant, however, way more dense. And the other one will be taller, but way less dense. And you're going to do, and in the end, you're going to be doing more cuts for the 21. But the production is going to be the same. Stay tuned, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the end, about the gradation of the pasture. Now let's visualize this. Take a look at what I'm talking about. This is a warm season grass in this example. And this is two types of memories. Memory shorter and memory taller. Remember that the graph right there, 20 inches and or 35 inches. This is right here is what I'm talking about. Can you guys notice differences between them? Can you see that? Is it visible? So first thing, let's look at the base. It's more dense, right? It's shorter compared to this one. Here's the base here, wherever it's more dense. Here's the height. And here's the height of the other one. However, the other one is way greener, right? Animals with high energy demand, animals with less energy demand. So this, another idea here, if you let this one grow, it's not going to become this, because the memory is of 20 inches. You keep doing that, and that's how your pasture will look like. You keep doing this, and that's how your pasture will look like. It's not something that one day to the other. It takes time to adapt and generate the memory. So this is the basic idea. You have different animals, different demands. How do you control? Well, you have to have different memories that are good for you. So heights. Targeting heights is a very easy way for you to control all of this that I'm talking about. Now let's see a real example that we have in Jackson, Ohio, with Big Blue Stem and Indian grass. Memory 1, taller. This one we grazed at 24 inches until 7 inches. And the other one, 20 inches, 10 inches. And then the intensity is 50% for the memory 2. Again, can you guys see differences here? Let me point some of them. Can you see that there's a darker coloration? Is it possible to notice that? And here, it's a little bit green lighter. Why is that? It's the amount of leaves in this pasture. It's the other image that I showed you before for a different species. Now, do you see this image here? It's more opaque. It's less bright. All of this left behind, stems. Here, leaves. So grazing management is not fixed in stone. If you have energy demand from your animals, this might be the good idea, the target height that you should follow, and the structure that you should form in your pest, the memory that is good for this kind of situation. Cow-calf systems, depending on the energy demand, you can go for this one. You can get away with this one, no problem. More mass, but more stems, less leaves. And then, this is cheap to follow, this is easy to do. Have a ruler or have anything that you can do to measure the height. Let's say your boots. If you know your boots have 20 inches, walk in your pasture, and it's going there. It's time to graze. But the point is, how can I give you a fixed date then? How can I look at you and say graze in 2 weeks, graze in 3 weeks, 4, 5? It depends on the conditions that you have, right? It might take less, it might take more. I don't know. But this is why the height is useful. The pasture is telling you when to graze, not me. I don't know, but the pasture knows. And the way you translate that information is the height. And that's how you control the structures you want, right? The memories you want. Information from our experiment then. Dr. Cavegado already gave some ideas for you from this. She showed that. And we have, again, memory 1, mass. A lot of mass. Memory 2, quality. Okay? These are the heights that we found. For dead warm season grasses, that is the point of this presentation, 20 inches. That's where you got that memory 2 over there that I showed you guys, with a lot of leaves. And memory 1, more mass, that's 24 inches or taller. It depends on you if you want that or not. Now remember, there's a caveat in here. It's not that simple. Here's the information in this experiment about yield in the entire season. And remember the idea that theory goes into practice. This is the practice. And the theory was the graph I showed you guys. We're supposed to expect the same behavior. And look at this. The shorter one in the experiment produced the same thing as the tall ones because we had different memories. So, even though they're producing the same, you have more leaves in the shorter one. Again, if you want to go for quality, it's that one. You're going to produce the same in the entire season. However, the target's more sensitive. You got to move your animals more times per season. And if you don't have the manpower to do that, or everything is more complicated, you can't do that in your pasture, you can go for a taller one. However, you'll be losing efficiency. And the important point here is that you have to have an idea of these consequences and the consequences of your actions in the pasture. And this right here is what's going to happen. You can go for the bigger one, you can go for mass, but you're losing efficiency because both of them reproduce the same in the entire season, but this one will give you more leaves. To finalize this presentation, then, when I show this information to farmers or other persons, these are three questions that I got the most. If I'm constantly grazing my pasture shorter, am I going to overgraze them? Let's look at this graph again. If you're grazing them, in their example, at 20 to 35, they're producing the same. So it's not in degradation, because you're letting your pasture to adapt to the grazing. It's producing more tillers. It's a vegetative growth. However, if you go shorter, 15 inches, 10 inches, grazing at always 15, always at 10, can you see that is decreasing? This is degradation. So if you graze your pasture in this interval, you're good to go. However, you have different structures that are good for different things. Okay? Now, should I fertilize my native warm season grasses? That's a tough one. My opinion is that in every pasture, at least the base fertility you have to work with. So they are able to adapt and do everything that I talked about. If the base fertilization is not on point, you're in a moment in your life, you're going to have to reseed and it's going to enter in degradation. In a moment. I don't know when. Might take years. But the baseline fertilization is the most important thing. What about nitrogen? Depends on you. How much forage you wanna produce, right? Native warm seasonal grasses, you can get away. Let's see this graph here. It's going to behave the same way, but everything is going to happen slowly. Your targets are going to take more time to produce. You have less cycles, okay? So the forage production in a year is going to be less. So is there a problem you're not going to fertilize? Actually, they can handle, but you have to have an idea that you're producing less per year. Is that a problem? It depends on your system. And then, I'm sorry, the last one, will my native warm seasonal grasses produce seed head if I always graze them shorter for quality? And actually they will, because there's a moment in time that the sunlight, the day length, they signal the plant to enter in seed head, and it's unavoidable. They will enter in seed head. Don't be concerned with this if you go for the shorter target of 20 inches, the way I talked about. However, for most of grazing systems, most of grazing plants, perennial ones, the way you maintain them for years and years to go is by stimulating tiller growth. And I'm from Brazil. I'm familiar with warm season grasses. And I've known pastures that have been implemented for 40 years, almost 60 years. Always being managed with these principles right here. The way you make things perennial in a grassland is by stimulating tiller growth, mainly. Okay? That was, I had to talk with you guys. I'm always open for questions. Yep.
Go back to your slide where you have the combination of grazing heights.
Yes. This one?
Yeah. I was wondering what you thought is the memory 1 and memory 2 confounded by your residual height? So what I'm asking, why didn't you have the same residual height for grazing?
The idea for this one was to have two contrasting managements. I had to find one that was most utilized here in Ohio, and when we were searching for this is maximize mass and maximize intake. So the idea is the other one that we're trying to propose to be maximizing leaves. You have to grow shorter in a moderate grazing. So here we make clear that they don't have the same intensities. However, the idea is to compare strategies, the combination in frequency and intensity, not only intensity. It's both of them. So it's a contrasting strategies that we wanted to compare here. No, this one's 50%, this one's 70% of intensity. Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. So it depends on the plants. Some plants are faster to adapt, and the ones that are faster to adapt are the ones that you look at and produce more tillers. And the ones that are bunches, they take a little bit more time. But at least 2 cuts, I would say. 2 grazing cycles, not from one to the other, but ideally 1 grazing season. So if you miss a target, there's a good thing here. It's not going to screw up all the time. Like in 1 cut, you're not going to destroy your pasture because it still has the memory of the good management. But that's something that you have to build through time. Okay. So she was there for Kristen. That's an amazing question, and that's one that it's tough because you're right. These plants will behave, they grow differently than the other plants. If you change the species here, who's to say that the targets will work? So then it's the part of then extension, for example, to get the species and to know them better and see their targets. But I can provide, say this is the target for every species, for example. That's impossible. That's not going to happen. And then for, if it is cow and if it is sheep, the behavior of the plant is going to be the same according to the frequency and intensity. But I know that they have different goals and different ways to manage. I'm more familiar with cattle. If you graze with sheep, I know that the plant will behave the same. However, what is good for the cow might not be good for the sheep. And that might change some stuff. We can talk later about that. That's an interesting one. Yep.